hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
I am the king!
Yes.
I am the king!
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Eisenfire here, and welcome to the channel. Episode 2 of House of the Dragon is here, entitled Rhaenyra the Cruel, and overall I enjoyed this episode a little bit more than I did the premiere. I thought this episode felt a little bit more fleshed out, it didn't feel anywhere near as rushed, and events definitely felt like they had a little bit more room to breathe. And today we're going to take a look at a few of the standout scenes as well as a few standout performances from episode 2 as well, starting with one of my favorite scenes from tonight's episode. And one thing I really enjoyed about episode 2 was the beginning of it, and them showcasing the chaos that is erupting inside the Red Keep in the wake of Blood and Cheese, while King Aegon's guards search for the culprit, followed by the reaction of Aegon finding out about Blood and Cheese. And I really enjoyed this scene, and it was definitely a standout for me and was some of the finest acting in the episode. Seeing the visceral reaction that King Aegon has at the sight of the death of his son and heir was very palpable, and you can see him displaying a very wide variety of emotions in this scene, and I thought it was brilliantly played by Tom Glencarney. And this scene definitely sets the tone for the remainder of the episode, as both sides, the Blacks and the Greens, are spending the entirety of it reacting to Blood and Cheese and dealing with the aftermath and the ramifications of such an action. We see on the side of the Greens, Aegon is fully prepared to start going to war and really wants to bring the fight to the enemy, with Otto and Alicent trying to counsel as much restraint as possible, with them enacting a plan to use Prince Jaehaerys' body as a symbol to try and rally the people of King's Landing and beyond against Rhaenyra, styling her Rhaenyra the Cruel. And it seems like Otto is definitely still trying to play the long game, with him hoping that once news spreads of the death of Prince Jaehaerys at the hands of Rhaenyra, that more and more houses will flock to the side of the Greens and they will be able to bolster their numbers before the fighting starts. And speaking of Blood and Cheese, we get word that Blood himself has been caught trying to leave the city with the prince's severed head in his possession. And on the show, we see that Blood quickly gives up Daemon and names him as the one who hired him for such a deed. And in the book, it plays out a little bit differently, whereas Blood is indeed caught at the gate trying to leave with the prince's severed head. But in the book, Blood is tortured for multiple days on end before he finally cracks and names his co-conspirator as Daemon Targaryen. And in the episode, we see King Aegon gets a small semblance of revenge as he delivers the killing blow to Blood himself. But next, we see the reaction the Team Black has to the events of Blood and Cheese and the aftermath that it causes, with Rhaenyra receiving word on Dragonstone that the deed is already being laid at her feet, followed by Rhaenyra suspecting that Daemon may have had a hand in the event, of which he does not deny when confronted by Rhaenyra, with Rhaenyra furious at Daemon, stating that he has weakened her claim to the throne, which is definitely understandable from Rhaenyra's point of view. We did already see that Otto is trying to pin the event on Rhaenyra in hopes that it will lose her potential allies in the future, which of course is the same fear that Rhaenyra has. If word were to get out that Rhaenyra ordered the death of an innocent child, it could very well turn some of her allies against her. And here we are continuing to see a little bit of a rift develop between Daemon and Rhaenyra in terms of how they want to handle the approaching war, with their fight ultimately leading to Daemon departing Dragonstone and heading for what is most likely the castle of Harrenhal. But next, we get an interesting scene between Crispin and Sir Arryk of the Kingsguard, with Crispin trying to lay a guilt trip at Sir Arryk's feet, seemingly blaming him for the events of Blood and Cheese for him quote-unquote not being present to guard the Queen, even though he was on duty to guard the King that night in the throne room. And this, of course, is a clear case of projection from Sir Crispin, where he knows very well that he is very much to blame, or at the very least, definitely had a hand in Blood and Cheese happening as easily as it did, as we see that during the deed, he and Alicent were bumping uglies in Alicent's bedchamber. And I definitely get the feeling that Sir Crispin and Alicent are both going to feel some measure of responsibility because of this, and I definitely feel like they are going to feel a great deal of guilt as well. After all, if he had been on duty, maybe he could have seen and prevented Blood and Cheese from happening. We also get that very interesting scene of Aemond Targaryen in the brothel, where he is kind of proud of himself that Daemon considers him such a foe as much as to try and hire an assassin to slay him in his bed in the dead of night, and feels that Daemon fears Aemond. What was also very interesting in this scene was the fact that Aemond is seemingly very regretful and remorseful for what happened with Luke, and genuinely seems to be feeling bad for what he did. And I really enjoy seeing them peeling back some of the layers of some of these characters like Aegon and Aemond a little bit more, who didn't have a whole lot of screen time at the end of Season 1. I get the feeling we are going to start seeing that Aemond isn't just your average one-dimensional tough guy, and there's a little bit more that meets the eye with Aemond One Eye. But next, we get another one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode between Aegon, Otto, and Sir Crispin. We see that Aegon has ordered the death of all of the city's rat catchers, and we see that he has indeed caught cheese among them as well, a move that Otto is very displeased with. And the acting from Rhys Ifans in this scene was incredible as well. You can really start to see the frustration with Aegon bubbling to the surface in this moment, with he and Aegon continuing to clash on how to handle the aftermath of Blood and Cheese and what their response should be. A situation made even more dire when Aegon reveals Sir Crispin's plan to send Arik to Dragonstone to slay Rhaenyra, a decision that Otto is furious with for not having been consulted prior. And I really enjoyed how they included Aegon's line about spilling blood and not ink to Otto in this scene. It was a nice callback to the book. But the clash eventually ends with Aegon removing Otto from his position as Hand of the King and promoting Criston Cole to the job. At which point we get another great line from the book with Aegon stating that his new hand will be a steel fist. But last, and certainly not least, we get to the Cardrel Bowl. Towards the end of the episode, we see that Arik has arrived on Dragonstone and is making his way into the castle to infiltrate and pass himself off as his brother in order to get close to Rhaenyra to slay her. And just as he makes it into Rhaenyra's bedchambers, in comes the other brother, Eric of the Kingsguard, who serves Rhaenyra, and the fight begins. And I must say, I really feel like the show definitely did justice to the Cardrel Bowl. It was a really good fight scene filled with good action and some really good emotion. After a few minutes of fighting, however, Sir Arik eventually ends up getting the better of his brother and stabs Sir Eric multiple times, killing him. At which point, Sir Arik chooses not to carry out his command and leaves Rhaenyra alone and kills himself instead, falling on his sword, most likely out of shame. And I really enjoyed how it played out. I thought it was a really good scene with equal parts action and gut-wrenching emotion. And I really enjoyed the fight choreography as well. Any choreographer worth their salt knows that you have to differentiate these two characters so the audience knows who is who. And when fight scenes break out between two characters that look similar, or in this case, exactly alike, usually you will see some common methods be employed so the audience can tell who is who. In this case, the cuts to Sir Eric's head and his leg. Early in the fight, we see Sir Eric take a kick to his forehead from his brother, causing a gash on his forehead, and we also see him take a cut to his leg as well from his sword. Which is how we know later on in the fight that it was Sir Eric that was on top of Sir Arik, strangling him until Sir Arik grabs his brother's wound, forcing him back. At which point, Sir Eric gets back up, charges at his brother, only to get fatally stabbed by Sir Arik. At which point, he takes his own life in exchange. But overall, I really enjoyed the scene and I thought it was executed extremely well, and was certainly a worthy adaptation of the Cardrel Bowl. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we finally got our first acknowledgement of Daeron Targaryen's existence on House of the Dragon. And it looks like now that Otto has been dismissed as Hand, he will be traveling back to Oldtown, and hopefully we will see young Daeron Targaryen in the upcoming episodes. We also got our very first look at Adam of Hull as well, both on the docks with his brother Alan, and later on the beach as sea smoke flies overhead. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that storyline develops and how eventually Adam does come into contact with Sea Smoke. We also got a good look at 2 of the dragon seeds in this episode as well. We saw another look at Hugh the Hammer, and I really like how they're giving some of these characters a little bit more backstory. As we see here, Hugh the Hammer actually has a family of his own, which is something that is not mentioned in Fire and Blood. And we also got our very first look at Ulf the White in this episode as well. And both of these characters will become very prominent when it gets to the Dragon Seed storyline in Season 2. But there you have it, folks, some of my standout scenes from Episode 2. Overall, I really enjoyed the pacing of Episode 2. I feel like it was paced far better than Episode 1. Things felt like they really had time to develop, and nothing felt quite rushed. So I would definitely give Episode 2 an 8 out of 10. And definitely let me know your comments down below. Where would you rate this episode out of 10, and what were some of your favorite scenes from Episode 2? But that is going to do it for us today on our quick breakdown for Season 2, Episode 2, Rhaenyra the Cruel. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out, and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.